Most people think learning something new takes years, but that's only because they weren't taught how to learn the correct way. So in my 20s, I just thought I wasn't smart. Like I got C's in school, I was broke, I worked at a bar, and really I was just dreaming about how to make money or how to start a business one day. But once I discovered this 4-step process, I was able to learn so fast that I ended my 20s with a successful 8-figure business and over 8 figures liquid in my bank account. And the crazy thing is, AI has made this 4-step process even easier and faster to learn new skills than ever before. So with that said, let's dive into step 1. So if you want to learn faster than 99% of people, the key is to cut through all of the noise and find the signals. So in other words, you want to cut through all of the watered down copycat information on the internet, which is the noise, and find the few pieces of information that give you the highest return on your time, which is the signal. So the signal that you're looking for is called the source material. And the source material is essentially the most original and trusted information on any given topic. So it's the information that most other influencers, gurus, experts, and books are just really basing their material off of. It's kind of like the source material, if you think about it this way, is like the base of the tree, and essentially everybody else's ideas are branching off of that core material. So the thing is, once you find this, it'll help you learn way faster. So for example, let's say you wanted to learn copywriting. Would you rather watch 100 YouTube videos about copywriting that are ultimately just derived from the same few sources? Or would you rather cut straight to the absolute best information? So somebody like Gary Halbert, Dan Kennedy, or Eugene Schwartz, and then pick up everything you need to know in just a fraction of the time? The answer is obvious. So how do you find the source material? 3 steps. Step number 1, just go to ChatGPT or any language model. Step 2, click the deep research function of this model. And then step 3, just use this prompt word for word, which is find the original source material for insert your topic. List the foundational thinkers, their core works, and which ones everything else is based upon. Ignore modern summaries and opinions. And then you can also follow up with this response after ChatGPT actually responds to you, which is, what's the minimum set of source material I need to understand whatever your topic is from first principles? So this tells the AI that you want less content, higher signal, and faster understandings. For example, last month, I wanted to learn about Austrian economics, which is really the school of economics that's most influenced Elon Musk, among many other big thinkers. And I used this prompt and ended up studying Ludwig von Mises's Human Action, which is a widely regarded as the most complete single-volume presentation on Austrian economics still to this day. Really quick, if you're looking to land a lucrative high-ticket closing roles, so something that's 6 or multiple 6 figures a year, completely remote, and with an offer owner that has good lead flow, good comp structure, as an actual offer that gets their clients results, and the offer owners are cool, but you kind of feel like that you don't have the track record or the experience or even the connections to break into the industry and land an offer that's actually good, one that's worth their salt, I want to invite you to take a free quiz that I essentially created that will assess where you're currently at in high ticket sales, whether you're a complete beginner or you're very advanced or somewhere in between. And then after the quiz, it's going to give you a customized game plan of how to up level your high ticket sales career, whether that's just breaking in or taking your current position and really leveling it up to the next position. So the quiz is completely free. It takes 60 seconds. The game plan video is also completely free. So check that out. Just click the link in the description. And now back to the video. Now, once we identify the source material, we don't dive in and start reading right away. Instead, we go to step 2. So here's the thing. Before I actually dive in and read the material, I do one thing that allows me to read faster, increase my retention, and ultimately understand the key lessons of the material I'm trying to learn much, much better. So before I dive into the chapter, I have AI summarize the chapter with a very specific prompt, which we'll cover in a second, but I just want to be clear. What we're not doing here is replacing reading with AI summaries. Instead, what we're doing is we're only reading the summaries beforehand because it dramatically increases your retention. And the reason it works so well is because when most people dive into a book, they jump into each chapter really having no idea of what's actually important. So they already don't know what the key points are, what the arguments are, and what they should even be paying attention to. So as they're reading, they're not only trying to comprehend the information, but they're also trying to figure out like what is even really the key themes or key points of this book. As a result, their brain tries to remember everything and ends up remembering almost nothing. It's kind of like you're walking through a city without a map. Like you're moving, but you don't know where you're going, and everything feels kind of confusing. So think about the chapter summary as the map. So it tells your brain what matters before you actually start reading. Now, the other reason I like doing this so much is when you're studying this true source material, it's usually pretty dense. And that's because it's not written to be entertaining like most of these pop culture books out there that are full of fluff and absolutely no substance. Instead, it's written to be dense and accurate. So I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm learning about the American Revolution, and I'm reading this book called The Glorious Cause. And it's one of the best books on the topic, period. But I'm just going to be honest, that thing is so freaking dry. And when you already know, like when I already go into the book, I already know through the AI summary what happens in the chapter, what the main ideas are, and ultimately why all that matters in the bigger picture. And I know that before I even start the chapter, I not only retain the ideas better as I read them, but I understand them fundamentally more, and I get through the chapter way faster because I know what's coming as it comes up. Okay, so to do this, here's the exact prompt I use before each chapter. I just type into ChatGPT or any language model, summarize this chapter for me before I read it, explain what happens, the key ideas, and why this chapter matters in the bigger picture. Pretty simple. That's it. So when I do that, my brain actually knows what to look for, and reading becomes much faster and much easier. Then, still before I dive into the chapter, I'll take notes on whatever I learned from the chapter summary and add it to a master Google Doc I'm taking notes with about the topic. And you're wanting to do this for two reasons. The first reason is studies show that active note-taking improves recall and understanding by over 30%, which is because your brain is actively processing the information instead of just reading it. And the second reason is we're going to be using this master document later and actually feeding it back into AI, which we're going to cover in just a second. So now we're finally ready to start reading, which brings me to step 3. So here's the thing. 90% of the time, I will only read books if I can listen to the audiobook, or better, the Kindle narration at the same time. And I do that for a few reasons. First, the audiobook adds voice inflection, pauses, and rhythm. So for instance, when somebody speaks, their tone changes, they slow down, they have a cadence that varies, like the cadence picks up and then slows down and then picks back up, and then they emphasize certain words. And the thing is, our brain is wired to pay attention to that. That's why listening to somebody talk is far less taxing on your brain than reading a flat page of text. And that's because the changes in tone and cadence help your brain stay engaged. And the reason I like doing this so much is it actually improves your intention a ton. So the research shows on learning that the more senses you use at the same time, like seeing and hearing, for instance, in this case, your brain forms stronger memory connections. So to put it simply, you're giving your brain 2 ways to understand the same idea instead of 1, which makes the information stick way better. So ultimately, this allows me to read at 3 to 3.5 times speed on Audible without sacrificing retention at all. And in fact, actually making my retention better, which also allows me to absolutely fly through books, which is why I really don't like reading without Audible, because I can just read so much faster if I'm listening at the same time. Now, as I'm reading, I still frequently pause the book and take notes on anything I think is interesting, and then I put those notes into my running document that I'm taking notes on. Again, this helps retention like we already talked about, and we're going to be using this document in just a second. Then I repeat steps 2 and 3 until I finish the book. Once the book's finished, I move on to step 4. And this is where I synthesize everything I learned using AI in a way that absolutely skyrockets my retention. So here's the thing. Through finding the source material, using the AI summaries before diving into each chapter, listening and reading on the same time, and taking notes as we go, we've already boosted our retention dramatically. But the truth is, if you want insane levels of retention and learning, this alone isn't going to be enough. And instead, you have to create a process where you can review what you just learned, connect the ideas, and be able to come back to them later. Because without a system to fall back on, you're gradually just going to forget what you've learned. So for instance, we've all learned something where a year or 2 passes by and we only retain what, like 5% of what we already learned, and that's at best. So this step is about creating a system that actually prevents that. And the way we're going to do it is through an AI called Notebook LM. So Notebook LM is an AI tool that you can use to upload all the information you have about a topic to create videos, podcasts, slideshows, graphics, solely just from the notes you've uploaded. So to give you a better picture, I'm going to dive into exactly how I do this. So first, I take the full notes document and upload in the Notebook LM as a new notebook. And once the notes are uploaded, I have a few options. So first, I can use the chat function to review anything from my notes quickly. So I can ask questions like, explain these ideas simply, how do these concepts connect, what are the biggest takeaways, and it only answers using my notes. And the second thing I can do is I can turn my notes into a slideshow, a video summary, or even my favorite, which is a podcast breakdown, which is all generated through AI. And the reason I love this is because sometimes months or even years later after you learn something, you start to get a little bit rusty on the topic. So using this function, I can just re-listen to the AI podcast covering all the ideas from my notes, and it brings me back up into speed within 60 minutes without having to reread the entire book again. And then the third thing I can do is I can actually quiz myself using the flashcard options in Notebook LM. So this is a great way to re-review the material, and also research, of course, shows that testing yourself is one of the best ways to improve memory. That's because when you force your brain to recall information, it sticks so much better. So that's how I use AI to learn faster than 99% of people. Now, if you want to know how I apply what I've learned to create an income that's put me in the top 1% of income earners in the US, you can check out this next video right here.